It began like any other media launch. A team of journalists, editors, and fact checkers putting the final touches on a project they believed could make a difference. In March 2024, Faktograf, Croatia's leading fact checking outlet, introduced the Climate Portal, a bold new platform tackling the growing tide of climate disinformation. But before the first article even had a chance to breathe, the backlash began. What followed was a coordinated online assault, not just criticism, but ridicule, trolling, and threats. Thousands of sarcastic haha reactions, known as hahachi in Croatian, flooded their posts. Anonymous accounts mocked and harassed the team. Emails were sent to government bodies demanding that their funding be pulled. And behind it all, familiar faces. The same disinformation actors who had spent years sowing doubt during the pandemic, now turning their attention to climate journalism and science. What's striking is that the disinformation campaign didn't begin with the Climate Portal launched. It started a month earlier, when Faktograf was awarded public funds to build it. Even before a single article was published, fringe media outlets and known disinformation actors began spinning narratives of censorship, political bias, and misuse of taxpayer money. The attacks were preemptive, designed not just to discredit the portal, but to delegitimize the very idea of publicly funded fact-checking on climate issues. Today we speak with Tajana Broz, program manager at Faktograf and author of the chilling case study documenting this attack. She takes us inside the Operation Hahachi, what it felt like, how the team responded, and what this case reveals about the evolving playbook of disinformation campaigns. This isn't just a story about a fact-checking site. It's a warning. Disinformation doesn't die. It mutates. And when it does, it comes back louder, more coordinated, and more dangerous than before. So to unpack what happened and why it matters, let me first welcome Tajana Broz. Tajana, welcome to the show.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you very much. So let's start at the beginning. Let's be redundant on this. When the Climate Portal launched, you likely expected some pushback, but did you anticipate something like this intense and coordinated?
Honestly, no. We were aware that after the Croatian government decided to invest European funds into the development of fact checking. There was a public call, two public calls, altogether 21 projects received money for starting new fact checking initiatives. Among them, also there was Faktograf, because we wanted to dive more deeply into the climate issues and climate change denialism and to start a new publication. So we were just one of 21 organizations receiving those public funds. And yes, some fringe portals already, when the results were published, said, okay, now state is financing Faktograf, they will just conduct more censorship or whatever they were saying. But this was just like here and then some article in the fringe media, mostly expected. So we knew that probably there will be some stir when we start. But honestly, we didn't expect to grow as much as it did. And to go on several different paths, because there was not just one line of the attack, but as I will talk a little bit later, there will be three.
Yeah, let's not push it any further. So let's talk about that right now. So as you said, you've described like these three parallel lines of attack, right? So can you walk us through how these attacks unfolded? How did it happen?
Yeah, sure. So first, just to introduce, if people don't know, this is Hahach, or a grinning face. It's a Facebook emoji introduced, if I remember correctly, in 2016 as laughing
So exactly before for those who are not watching, these podcasts but just listening to it. Tajana, can you just briefly describe that? That's the emoji that a
Yeah,
lot of
you
people actually use, right? On a
yeah,
daily
you have,
basis. Normal
everyone who uses
conversations.
Facebook knows there are 6 emojis like heart, like emoji, care emoji, angry emoji, sad emoji, and there is a laughing emoji,
Hmm.
which
Specifically on Facebook.
yeah, it it is used in some other places, but mostly Facebook introduced it as it is, and as a grinning squinting face.
Hmm.
So basically, the idea behind this emoji is to show laughter. So if you
Hmm.
think something is funny, you will use that emoji. We call it in Croatian haha or hahać,
Hmm.
hahać emoji. But as some researchers already noticed, people use emojis in different ways. So sometimes you use, like, there's also a wow emoji, if you
Hmm.
know, the one that is like surprised.
Hmm.
Sometimes you are really using it as saying you are surprised, but
Hmm.
sometimes people use it to express that they are shocked with some information. The same goes with the haha or haha emoji or the hahach, because although the idea is to use it when you find something funny, but also it became something as a political tool to express that you find something ridiculous, that you find it just not worthy of the serious conversation, that you think something is really stupid and you want to make fun of it, not in a good way, but in a really, really bad way.
Yeah, as a
So,
tool to let's say belittle what it's being shared, right?
yes. So how it started? We started to publish posts on our social media accounts in the beginning of March, like 3 weeks before the official launch of the climate portal. I need to say that Facebook is still the main social media in Croatia. Faktograf has a lot of followers on Facebook, but also we are known for participating in the Meta's third-party fact-checking program. So Facebook is usually the main place where people talk about Faktograph and where we get harassed. So when we started to posting like announcements that client portal is coming, we started to notice mostly right away the haha faces on our posts. And what we have seen that several usual suspects have followed up on our announcement. So we know those profiles from the pandemic times, when those profiles also um, had a huge disinformation campaign about not just pandemic as such, but also about the work that Faktograph does. So they did publish, like, here it is, the new Faktograph project. And almost immediately somehow people started to talk in the comments, like, we should ridiculate, make fun of them, or this
Hmm.
is a terrible way to spend taxpayers' money, or now they will censor. So basically, they took all the existing narratives against media and started commenting on that. So, and this putting hahache on our Facebook posts became more and more and more intense.
Hmm.
There was more and more posts about it, and then of course it's how they work. They say, okay, here is the portal. They hint at least that people should make fun of us. Then people make fun of us, and then they write posts saying, you see, nobody takes them seriously. So it's
So there is these let's say these several actors who are like the influential figures, right? That point the finger to who is the target. In this case, Faktograph and the Climate Portal, and then their followers and fans. In the case, of Facebook, then they are the ones that take the lead, into conducting this campaign.
yes. So it started with it was trolling mostly, putting just, and they had a really good time putting Hahachi on our posts, and they were they would go to our post, put Hahachi, and then they would go to the post of that influential person saying, I put the Hahachi, it was very funny, and the conversation continues. After that, since we started to remove those profiles because all of our posts were flooded with this, and as I said, they used it to show how people think we are ridiculous. We understood that there is a campaign going on, and we started to block those profiles. And then they created an action on sending emails to the Ministry of Culture and Media and the Agency for Electronic Media, because they were responsible for handling the European money through which we financed the climate portal.
That's the second
Yes,
kind of wave of attacks, like
that's the
this
second
parallel
part,
path, right?
coming from the Hachi operation, because also some profiles would leave like a very offensive, threatening comments. They were leaving hate speech and everything. So we started to block them. Then they said, "Oh, but you are blocking us." No matter that we blocked them because they were coordinatedly attacking us, but let's put that aside. They decided to write to the ministry and to the agency saying, this is publicly funded portal. We should be allowed to say whatever we want. They are not allowed to censor us as taxpayers who are giving their money to financing the portal. And they were talking a lot about the sending emails in the comments, and there were also several of the influential actors created separate publications saying you should report them, you should write to the ministry and the agency, because they are not allowed to block people basically harassing us because they are financed with taxpayers' money. We didn't know to which extent this email action was happening until we started to basically do the case study, because neither agency, neither ministry didn't contact us at any time. So that was happening somewhere, and we didn't know are there hundreds of emails coming and what will happen. What we saw was that somewhere in the beginning of the April, the agency really put the issue on it's a Council for Electronic Media, and they have weekly meetings, and they did discuss those complaints against the climate portal. And what we saw then is that they said that they are not that they cannot influence on anything happening on the social media. So also what happened, we learned later on, because at that point nobody contacted us. We just knew that there are emails going to the ministry and to the agency. And then the third part, which was happening parallel, was basically building narratives against us. The first two narratives were familiar. First, just the fact that Faktograf is a fact-checking media organization. They use the old narrative about fact-checking being ideologically biased censorship. So we are leftists who have an agenda, or we just have an agenda of global elites, which we are promoting through our work. And because we are doing fact-checking, we are censoring people. No matter that it was debunked a million of times that it has nothing to do with censorship. It is only about adding new information, that we don't remove posts, that politicians cannot be fact-checked in the scope of the Meta's third-party fact-check. I mean, it was all said really a million times, but it's just the narrative that stick, and that it's now, I think, glued to everybody doing fact-checking, no matter if they are participating in some platforms fact-checking program, or it doesn't matter. Fact checking equals censorship. That they really all the disinformation campaign that started in the pandemic and it's lasting still managed to glue those two words together. So that was the most obvious thing that was happening. The second was what we also saw, like we do this project for 3 years now, and last year we did a case study on the Minority Weekly Novosti in Croatia, and they had a big issue regarding the public financing also, because the narrative basically says, and that was now applied to us, first, if you worth anything, you should be able to have like market money to survive on the market, to get your readers or people to fund you, or you should have advertisement. That's the first thing. And the second is that if you receive public money, there are constraints on what you can write and how you can write. Basically, the public can control then your editorial policies. And if states give you money, then the state controls your editorial policies. Just it is complete misunderstanding about how public funding of the media should work and what guardrails should be between, of course, the state and the media, and why
And
public money.
also, exactly, and also what's the social function of the media, right?
Yes, exactly. So basically, they were saying, no, we are like, this is European taxpayers' money. If we want to harass you in the comments and say you should be, I don't know, dead or something, that's fine, because we are the one that are giving you the money, which is also very problematic on several levels. So that, and then since this was the climate portal, there was a new one, but also known narrative, and that is one of the greatest tactics of disinformation actors and purveyors is that science is unreliable. And not only science, then everybody who are talking about science, promoting science, and the narrative says that basically there is no scientific consensus, that scientists are not speaking the truth. They are also working for some global elites, and then the media does that also. So we had basically those three narratives. And regarding just one more thing, that climate science is unreliable, we noticed that narrative in some previous analysis that we did, and some other organizations that also were analyzing climate disinformation saw that there is a huge rise in exactly that narrative, because the idea is not even to prove to people that there is no climate change. The idea is to just for them to doubt. That is sometimes enough. They don't even need to convince people that there is something wrong with the climate and that there will be serious consequences regarding that. Or if we're talking about vaccines, they do not need to convince people that vaccines are bad. They just need them to doubt. And basically, when they doubt the science, the job is done, because then people can be persuaded about almost anything. So
Exactly.
we saw that too, also.
What we have observed, right, in the past, in this period of time that we've been working together, is like how the disinformation campaigns targeting the media, and now, more recently also climate scientists, or in general, scientists, is to erode the trust, right, on fact-based information, and once they do that, they have this, what you were saying, this fertile ground, right, for all the disinformation narratives, just, and this falsehood to actually grow unchecked. And specifically talking about previous case studies that you're just mentioning, Tajana, like previous case studies also conducted by Faktograf, which, by the way, they are all you can visit all of them in in your website, in Faktograf, of course, website, but also the English versions are available on the IPI website and on the Observatory of Disinformation Narratives Against the Media, which is a observatory led by the three organizations that are part of this project, Faktograf, TAZ, the Tagezeitung, and the International Press Institute. So, and just like talking or referring, back quickly to the two case studies, or the one that you mentioned, Novosti, case studies from the past. So what has stood out also in this case, that the one that we're talking right now, Operation Hahachi, was not just the tactics, but the people behind them, right? So who were these actors? And we've been talking about these influential figures, right? And how do they connect to previous disinformation campaigns Faktograf has faced and has reported about it?
Yeah, almost all of the actors mentioned in this Hahachi case study were also mentioned in the case study we did on how Faktograf was harassed during the pandemic. What happened in Croatia, but I guess probably happens in a lot of places, there is a lot of overlapping between disinformation actors that were active during the pandemic and now are switching to the issue of climate. What we see in the narratives is there are some connections in the way of thinking, the way of framing things, like when you talk about the lockdown that was happening during the pandemic, now they're talking about the climate lockdown. Like before, they locked people because of the virus, and now they will lock people because to save the climate. So again, there are forces that are trying to restrict people's freedom of moving, of mobility, of whatever, by locking them out. So this is one connection. And the second is like during the pandemic, the people had to wear masks. And now they should ride bikes or something like that. Like they are trying, then again, those forces, those elites, they are trying to change the way of life that people are living. Because firstly, it was because of the virus, and now it's because of the climate. And I think that these kind of narratives actually connects those two topics. And it was very easy when you present people like the climate issues in that way. It's very easy to convince the people that were already let's say victims of disinformation during pandemic, just to switch the same concerns they had about the freedom, about the way of life, about their personal choices, now to the climate. So we completely see, at least in Croatia, the overlapping is unbelievable, basically. So these actors are mostly who were attacking us now were the actors who were attacking us during the pandemic.
Basically, what you've described is kind of an ecosystem, right? That it's already operating well structured. So it's not just isolated individuals, but kind of a coordinated structure that works organically. Let's put it this way, to disseminate and to any kind of attacks against and disinformation campaigns against fact-checking outlets, and we're talking specifically about your case or against the media in general in Croatia. I think that what makes these ecosystems so resilient and capable of shifting focus, from vaccines to climate. And before you jump into that, I also want to mention a couple of things, which is, or at least one very important thing. What we're doing here in this conversation, it's not saying, do not believe on what these, groups are saying. All what we're saying is that, the evidence, the facts point to the opposite direction to what these people are saying. So we are not trying here to convince anyone from the, of the opposite. What we're here is saying, look, people who are responsible for presenting facts, to present scientific evidence, to the general population, so they have the freedom to believe whatever they want, and to form an opinion, are being targeted by those who do not believe that these facts actually exist. So sorry, going back to the question, and if you want to make any comment on this, of course, but going back to these ecosystems, so why it's so resilient? Why why it's still operating, from vaccines in 2020 to now climate, to shifting to different narratives?
Yeah, what I can say also, just maybe short digression. Few of those actors are fringe media. Few of those actors are well-known, influential people, and whatever they are saying behind their name. We know who they are, and they are completely open and about their political and other positions. But also what we see are several very influential and anonymous Facebook pages. For example, one that we discussed in this case study as well in the previous one is Capakova Zamenica, who was completely grew from the pandemic period. We cannot prove that like there is a big coordination, and then they talk about what they will write about Faktograf. But what we saw is that the same people, the same individuals, the same pages, anonymous or not, are following each other. And now they are living in some kind of echo chamber in which it is like normal to hate Faktograf. And then you will have the same person going from the profile to profile, from page to page, saying, okay, this Faktograf is a disaster, the climate portal is terrible, we should write to the ministry, and then just goes around the same group of profiles. So that's what we did observe, that they are following each other and responding to some incentives. In that case, it's like there is one profile, and she's a real woman, and basically she left comments about the climate portal on almost all observed places on internet where that was possible. In this case, only one, I think, fringe media is a little bit outside of that group, but basically shares the same point of views with those. But they were like maybe working a little bit more independently, and we couldn't see as much as connection between individuals visiting that page and some other pages. But they even shared, several of them, same screenshots. They didn't even make their own screenshots. Like Capakova Zamenica puts a screenshot of the climate portal, and then several people download that screenshot and puts them on their profile. We cannot prove these are the same people, and probably they are not. But do they follow each other? Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. This is how, as you just described, how this is how this ecosystem survives, right, and grows, just because for the same account are being, are replicating and disseminating, the same message, the same lies, all over the places, the different channels that are part of this ecosystem. Look, one of the most interesting aspects of the case study was also your change in the strategy. I think that you already mentioned this thing about starting to block, certain accounts and users in your Facebook page. So Faktograf adopted this new social media moderation policy, let's put it this way, for the climate portal. What did you differently? What did you do differently this time, and why?
Yeah, we really let people more or less do whatever in our comment sections. We did always hide hate speech and clear harassment. But we were we didn't want to even if people were hating us, we still wanted them to come to those Facebook pages we had and to be able to comment or put hahach on it. When it started with the climate portal, firstly, we did had like more or less the same, like we will see where this will go. And then when we saw that it is coordinated, that the people who want to engage in constructive conversations in the comment section, which we did want to achieve on our social media, that they are just running away. And that the only people who are left are the people who are there to hate us, not to engage in constructive debate, but just to make fun of us and to write threats and to produce amounts and amounts of hate speech. So we decided that we just don't want to allow that we want to create safe space for people who want to engage in constructive debate about the climate. We want those people in our comment section. So we started to block, which of course led to all those emails and the additional cycle of hate and everything. But that just weared out. Somewhere, like it lasted, altogether it lasted a month, but after we started to implement more restrictive moderation policies and we started to block profiles, that we saw the only attention is to just troll us and harass us. We started to see that the number of harassment and trolling is decreasing, and that the whole steer started to like wind out. So now we still get different comments. We still have climate denialism in some, especially if it's about agriculture. I think this is the maybe most important issue that we will be dealing with. People do get upset with a lot of things, and we leave it because these are the people that came to the specific post about specific topic, about specific article, and they say, we don't agree, we think it's ridiculous, we cannot have these measures against, I don't know, production of meat or whatever the issue is. And that's fine, because
Absolutely.
this is
Like
people
criticism, no
coming
matter how harsh it is, it's
yeah,
absolutely fine. I mean,
they
of
want to
course.
discuss the very important issue. They are not there just to troll, you know. So yeah, it was a big switch for us, but I think in the end it did open the space for people who do want to really engage, even to say, this thing you wrote in the article, it's stupid and I don't agree with it. That's fine. But when you have, like, we pull out the comments and the reactions they left on our post, but the comments on other places and the reactions on our posts, and you literally had people saying, yeah, I went to the climate portal page and then I was very fast and managed to leave 3 hahachi before they blocked us. They were like, they admitted that they were coming to the page just for their fun, for trolling, or they would say, yeah, I managed to leave a comment and I said to them that they should, I don't know, drop that or something like that. So people were saying on other places that their motivation is to come and to troll us or harass us. And then when we said, but we won't allow that, we will block you, oh, that's hurting their democratic rights to, I don't know, harass us, probably.
Look, beyond just a trolling. So what was at the stake here? Why is it important to analyze and understand attacks like this against climate journalism?
Because first of all, the climate portal are people, and there are people who do not deserve to have hate speech or threats against them on the internet. So we do need to protect journalists who are working both for Faktograf and for the climate portal. Secondly, I think that the narratives that are spreading are dangerous because, as we see, they can be applied to any new and other media. And thirdly, what, for example, happened a week or 2 weeks ago, our editor-in-chief had a lecture in one high school near Zagreb, and the guys learned about it, created posts saying what a disgrace the climate portal is in school, and then people started to comment it. We should write to Ministry of Education, and they started to harass the school where the lecture was held, and they were just putting a lot of comments, and it wasn't very nice. So that's also what happens. And it was the same two profiles that we are writing about in the case studies. And what does that mean? That we cannot go anywhere and talk and discuss, and because there is several profiles that can incite the 100, 200 people to go and leave hateful comments, whatever, wherever on the internet. So that's also a problem. And like when you read the comments they were leaving, some people were just trolling. But it's a very small line, and you never know who will understand and go like a step further from the trolling. And they will leave like a hateful comment, then they will leave a threat, and then maybe they will do something more dangerous. Yeah, maybe a small percent of people will go there from just leaving hahach, but some people do, so it's not very pleasant.
Well, it's important for our audience and whomever is listening, whoever is listening this podcast or watching us, on YouTube or on Spotify, that these comments have consequences in real life, in real people, so it is also important to understand that that if this kind of atmosphere, suffocating atmosphere that they're looking, to create, is successful as enough to silence, the journalists, to silence climate scientists, then we all lose. Definitely, the society is less free, because we will not have access to the top of, to the information that you are able to unearth. Those stories, those untold stories will not be told, right? So we all lose. I think that you've lived through this already before, right? Like you've been conducting these case studies on attacks against, against Faktograf before, and what's the role also that Faktograf plays in the society in Croatia, right? So your newsroom has also lived through all this. So what were the biggest lessons learned from these attacks? And what would you say to other journalists or media startups launching similar initiatives?
Well, the first is that unfortunately you should prepare that something can happen. I think that you should prepare some security measures for the journalists, to think about moderation policy before these kind of things happen. But also, what I haven't mentioned, maybe just to get back, it looks really bad when it's happening online, and when we blocked, or we had 1,500 profiles participating in the whole thing. And when you are looking at like that, it's a huge, it was several days of just hate messages and reactions, and it was really terrible. On the other hand, when we did a case study, we asked the Ministry of Culture and the Agency for Electronic Media how many email complaints that they received. The ministry received only 1 and the agency 9, which means that these, and also we managed to, with blocking, we managed to stop it. So just bear also in mind, it looks terrible, but these are ecosystems and not so big, and you can get out of it. And maybe sometimes you should look into the places that are supporting you, into the comment section which says you are doing a really good job, because that's also what happens time to time. So sometimes to, not to lose perspective that these are very aggressive, sometimes dangerous, but still minority groups, that there is a entire society and entire world that doesn't think that. I think that's also quite important, because when you get flooded with this, you tend to lose sight of the rest of the world.
And another important factor that you just mentioned is the fact of preparing for it. And
Yeah.
Faktograf and IPI have been leading, the work on developing measures for fact-checking outlets across Europe on how to build some sort of firewalls, right? To mitigate the impact of online abuse and online harassment. You can read all about it in the on the IPI website, but also on the observatory website, where we have a tab that you can check there, like all the resources available for both journalists, but also for newsrooms themselves, right? Finally, looking ahead, how do we move forward? So how do we kind of protect fact-based climate journalism in this hostile disinformation environment?
Yeah, it's $1 million question. I think that we shouldn't give up, of course. I think that there is always a need to explain what you do to try to reach new audiences, because there are some groups that you will never reach, and you cannot convince them to, take you seriously or trust the facts. But I think that we all should try to reach new audiences, new people, try to provide fact-based good journalism, to see what people are interested in, what is bothering them, what questions they have, and to dedicate enough time to answer those questions. And that's what we in Faktograf do. We do ask people, please let us know if you have any questions, if you find something suspicious, if there is an issue that you want to know more about, write to us and we will look into it. And I think it's very important. Is it hard? And are the disinformation purveyors doing very good job in trying to sort out and to undermine trust? They do, but still, I think that we can fight against that. And I think that the observatory is very good, and I think it should be like, we should talk to people more for them to understand how these actors work. I think it's very important for people to understand the playbook, how conspiracy theories work, so they can recognize when they are subjected to this kind of manipulations.
So it's not only looking on the manipulation and the disinformation in itself, on the narratives, right? But also looking at the systems that sustain these narratives, right? Tajana, thank you so much for sharing your insight and for the work that you and your team continue to do under immense pressure. Your case, it's kind of a blueprint, right, for resilience in the face of disinformation, and also a reminder that journalism, especially around the climate crisis, is both essential, yeah, and also contested. And to our listeners, if this episode left you seeing that this little haha emoji in a new light, you're not alone. In a world, these digital symbols carry, this double meaning. We really have to look twice, right? Thank you for tuning in to Decoding Disinformation. We'll be back next time with more stories from the front lines of the digital information war. Until then, stay curious, stay critical, and as always, stay informed. Thank you very much.